Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And do you know people who blindly add everyone to their LinkedIn because they were told that's not a good networking strategy? Or do you know people who dread the idea of networking but believe it's necessary for career growth? Maybe you're one of those people. If so, breathe a sigh of relief because networking like this is no longer the answer, and former USAA Government Relations AVP Ellen Poole, who is my guest today, explains this mythical value in our culture and what to do instead to grow your professional network. Ellen Poole, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Hi, Dave. Glad to be here.
Glad to see you here, Ellen. And networking used to be one of my little favorite pastimes. In fact, obviously being a firefighter, teamwork was obviously very important, but also networking to get the move you want, or even just to get it on with people and things like that. And I was such a community person that I networked outside, and I'm quite entrepreneurial now as a retired firefighter, and I was a little bit inside, but not so much as out now. So networking is such a powerful thing to do. So I'd like to hear your take on it. But first, what's your story anyway? How did you get into all this? Where's your upbringing and your humble beginnings, I should say, before you even got into writing a book and everything else?
Well, I grew up in a U.S. Navy military family, moving around. Funny, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. Clearly, I'm not. So I had a change in career direction.
All right. So you actually wanted to join the Navy?
No, I didn't want to join the Navy, but my dad was in the Navy. So we moved all over the place when I was a kid.
Right.
And I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then.
Vet. Sorry. Right.
Yes.
I thought you said a veteran, as in a military veteran.
It's right. So close.
It's my dyslexia confusing the words. Never mind. Go on.
Well, it's funny because I went to college as an animal science major in the College of Agriculture, and I realized 2 years in that being a veterinarian for large animals, which is what I wanted, was actually manual labor. And I didn't want to do manual labor for a living. Yeah. So then I had no idea. It's hard work. So I literally had no idea what I wanted to do. And my parents were saying, you have to hurry up and graduate. We're not paying for college forever. And so I got into the major of political science and communications, but it wasn't because I was interested in them. It was just because there was parental pressure to get done and graduate. In that major, I had to have an internship, and I had a 3-month internship with someone who was a state legislator from the Virginia legislature. And when my internship was over, she said, do you want to come to the Virginia Capitol and work for me for 2 months? And I wasn't interested. I hadn't particularly enjoyed the major. I just needed to graduate. And I said, no, thank you. And the guy who had done it the year before said, you have to do this. There is so much free food. And I said, free food? And that is the reason that I took that job. And I got there and I loved it. And I decided I wanted a future in legislative work and politics. And so when that job was over, I moved to Washington, D.C., and got a job with a company that did lobbying up on Capitol Hill. Mm-hmm. And then they encouraged me to go to law school. So I went to law school and then took a sudden change in direction and moved out to Arizona, where I knew hardly anybody. But after 6 years in Arizona, I was named the CEO of a prestigious trade association. And then 2 years after that, was named one of the 10 most influential people under the age of 40 in Phoenix, Arizona. And so all of this happened because of the professional network that I built. But after working for 30 plus years, I realized that not only did I never actually do networking to build my network, but when I looked around, I felt like networking really didn't work for most people. I mean, maybe for extroverts who like to get out there and chat people up. But what I found is most people are either too busy to do that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or they do it, but it doesn't really get them anything. And they're introverts, so they hate it. They stress out about having to try to get out and meet people or try to send messages to people on LinkedIn when they don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, how did I get this network when I don't do networking? And it was sort of that realization. I began speaking on the topic, actually. And someone said to me,
Oh,
you should write a book. And I said,
right.
I don't want to write a book. I don't like to write. And then the pandemic hit. And I got to tell you, Dave, first I cleaned the top of my refrigerator.
Yeah.
All my junior high photos. And then when I had nothing else to do, I decided to write that book.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy I did, because I'm so passionate about the topic, and it's led to this new career in speaking on this subject. I speak to university students, I speak to corporations, I speak to trade associations, and it's all about how to build a network, but not doing it by what we think of as networking.
So what we think of as networking is obviously the obvious one of social networking, meaning social media and things like that, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And the other one is not so much Twitter, I don't think. I think that's more of a kind of like putting a statement out there kind of thing, and it can get a bit toxic as well, with what I've seen. But also what I used to do before social media became very popular, and that's how I found out about Facebook and stuff like that. Actually, I think the first one was MySpace, which is a bit of a kid's one, really.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But before that, I was like yourself, networking without realizing as well sometimes. And that was the old-fashioned way, oh, right, okay, we're going to have this meeting in networking business, speed networking and things like that before social media came out. But that's not the networking you're talking about, is it?
Nope.
No. So tell us more about what you're telling me about then.
Okay, well, I wrote this book, as I said, and in it I offer 10 tactical tips as to how to build your network without networking. But the number one most important thing, and I have to tell you, reading about you, and I've watched some of your podcast episodes, I know that you actually did this. You just may have not have thought of it that way. And the number one thing is to be good at your job. But when I say be good at your job, I'm not talking about what most people think of, right? When most people hear that, they think about doing their job duties well, or impressing their boss, or getting good performance reviews. But what I'm talking about is being good at your job from the standpoint of the people you come into contact with every day, and doing things to solve their problems.
Yeah.
Because human nature is, who do we want in our networks, right? People who can solve our problems. So if you become someone who solves other people's problems, then they are all desperate to have you in their network. And that means they're in your network.
Yeah.
So throughout my life, I approached my work and my jobs that when anybody even needed something little from me, even if they weren't my boss, even if it was just someone I came in contact with, I went the extra mile. I really helped them. And they came away from it thinking, wow, she's a great person to know. Wow, she's really good at that. And then when they would hear of opportunities that they thought I might be interested in, they would immediately say, and I'm sure this was said about you, oh my God, you've got to call Dave Palma. He would be so good for that. And so what happens is this network of people builds who think you're fabulous. And without you doing anything, they're constantly looking around on your behalf. They're keeping their eyes open. And you know what? Recommending you reflects well on them. So they want to do it. But it all starts by solving everybody's problems and adding value for them, so they think of you that way. Does that resonate with you? I could just tell that you were that kind of person.
Yeah, I think it does resonate with me. As I said, I've been around that anyway, because it's a kind of, with the team working thing, and especially in the fire service, and you've probably seen it in the Navy as well. It's kind of like a family kind of situation. So, and not only because with the Navy, you're out, on the ship. I don't know if your father went out, a lot. I don't know what you call it, out in the water or whatever. But obviously with fire stations, they're everywhere, and we network with other fire stations. And it's very social without you realizing it, more like a family-like thing. So you do tend to think, we'll go around his house and do some building and blah, blah, blah. Oh, he knows a bit about computers, and we'll just get this fit. And you know about everyone's stuff, and it's kind of like that kind of thing. And I think what you're talking about is kind of like attraction marketing in a way, but without putting it out as attraction marketing, if you see what I mean. They're just attracted to something because of the way you are in a way doing it without even thinking about it. Is that what you're trying to say? I don't know if that's.
Yes, I think that is a great way to put it. And I think for the introverts out there, because I think when you apply the term marketing, introverts go, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
So it's really the people you come into contact with every day as you go about your day. So I feel like saying to introverts, you don't have to try to meet people or try to do anything. The next person who asks you for something at work, think about what problem do they have that I can solve. You're talking to them anyway. You don't have to make that extra effort. But as you help people solve their problems, they again start seeing you as a valuable member of their network. And so I feel like the term attraction marketing fits, but I don't want to put off introverts who say, networking is not for me. So
exactly.
I don't even want to say there's a marketing component. You need to be someone of value. And if you just be that person, everyone around you is attracted to that and they want you in their network.
So it's like having that aura about you, about something, really,
Mm-hmm.
without actually putting a label on it. Really, you don't really want to get technical, and we always get, as a firefighter and anything. If you put technical jargon to the Joe public out there, it confuses people. It's like, well, what did you say? What does that mean? What and you've probably seen that with your father as well. You don't want to. Words of command is very similar to the Navy and the fire service historically, but you don't really want to say things like, rungs or rounds and things like that, and you wouldn't know the difference, things like that. So, sorry, I'm going into a little tangent there, but that is the kind of thing you don't want to say to introverts or anyone that will just get put off. You just want to say, have that aura about yourself and be the person of interest that wants to get people to like what you're doing without even have to put a label in it and go out there making it complicated, really, to say that keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Yeah,
exactly. And there are additional things, and I talk about them in my book, because once you provide value for somebody like that, you still need to create a relationship around it. And so I talk about other things you do to create the relationship, like following up with people, some things to talk about with people. If you meet somebody through work, the way I'm talking about, a lot of people aren't good at trying to get to know them better. And again, it's back to introverts. What's amazing to me is I'm actually an introvert first, but second, as I go around speaking, the people who come up to me afterward and say, oh my gosh, your comments were so inspiring. I'm an introvert. I don't want to network. I know I should. I feel awful when I try to do it, but I feel guilty when I don't. And everything you've told me has just said to me, I can be who I am and still build relationships. Because, for example, I feel like one of the best things to talk about with people, especially if you're an introvert, is what you're interested in and what they're interested in. There's so much talk today about disclosing personal things about yourself to create an air of vulnerability because that attracts other people. Well, that's probably psychologically true, but introverts aren't good at disclosing things about ourselves. We don't want to, in our first conversation, tell you all about our weaknesses and what we're going through, but we can talk about things we're interested in. I love to hike. I could talk to you all day about the hiking I've been doing. And I find for most people, when they talk about things they love to do, they kind of light up and they sparkle. And again, for introverts, that's hard. For extroverts out there, it's a totally different ball game. So I'm a big advocate of, as you are adding value for people you come into contact with in the workplace, find out the kind of things they enjoy doing, or let them know a little bit about what you enjoy doing. And it can really be anything. I've talked to people with glamorous hobbies. I once did some work for a bank president who did heli-skiing, which I didn't know what it was. But it's
I don't know what it is.
You fly your helicopter to the top of the mountain and you ski down.
I did have that vision of it. Yeah, I did have it.
Going to be able to have a common ground with him. Oh, what mountain do you go to? But I've also talked to people with very simple hobbies like mine, hiking, or people love to talk about their dogs. And I feel like for introverts, that is a nice topic that you can talk about and not have it, get to your introversion where you feel uncomfortable, because when people feel uncomfortable doing something, they don't do it. They can go to 50 classes about networking. They can listen to podcasts. They can read books. But if it makes them uncomfortable, there's always a reason they're not going to do it. And I feel like the tips I offer are things that anybody can do, because extroverts can do them too. but things that anybody can do that won't make them uncomfortable because it's not a huge stretch. It's just a little bit outside what you normally do.
Yeah. Coming to think of it, when you do your speaking events, that's a networking opportunity in itself, isn't it? Really, because there's people gathering. You're not calling it a networking event, are you? Really, but people would do it naturally anyway with the environment they're in, irrespective of where they are. Where there's groups of people where you haven't met them before, surely.
Right. Well, and people come up to me and want to talk to me and get to know me because I've added value for them in my speaking. But it's so funny. I spoke at a trade association conference, 2,000 people last summer. And I said, you know, you don't need to go to networking events. You don't need to do this stuff. And I looked into the audience and the conference organizers were sitting there. And I said, all the conference organizers in the front row are in a panic because they just bought food for 2,000 people and it's out there in the hall. And I just told all you introverts, you can just go to your rooms. And the conference people in the front row were going, no. But I said, you know what? Here is the value of being at this conference. You don't have to try to meet new people. Go strengthen the relationships you have with the people who are here that you already know. Because so often people are thinking about, I just need to meet more and more and more people. But a network is made up of relationships, and relationships are ongoing.
Yes.
So there's a huge amount of value at an event like that to going around and catching up with the people that you already know, that you've already worked with, that you already added value for. You know, if it's somebody you helped 6 months ago, it's a great opportunity to say, how did that project come out? Are you getting to do the work you want now? Follow up. Oh, I remember when we talked last summer, you were getting ready to go on a vacation to the Caribbean. How was that? People, I think, focus too much on meeting new people and not on maintaining or strengthening the relationships that they have. So I find conferences to be a great place to do that. I rarely meet anyone new at a conference, but I come home having talked to and gotten closer to the people I already knew.
It's a good tip for entrepreneurs and businesses as a whole, is that most of their business is done with repeat business, with relationships they have with customers already, isn't it, really? So that's actually a big thing, isn't it? To actually, you know, you've got someone who you've got a relationship with, you know, keep hold of them and keep the relationship going, rather than, well, of course, with business, you still want to get leads or whatever you call it and do what you need to do. But, you know, it's kind of like that.
You've made a great point, because I think what many of us think of as traditional networking activities is really sales, right? And it's funny because now that I've written a book, I have to get leads. So I have to go out and talk to people I don't know and say, hey, I wrote this book and I'm speaking. But the difference is I understand that I'm not building a relationship where that person is going to help me in the future and recommend me and do things for me. They may do that if they follow on my sales lead and say, sure, we'll have you come speak. And if they like the work that I did, now they're in my network, right? And they're going around saying, you ought to have this woman come speak. She's amazing. Or you ought to read her book. It changed my life. But before that, it's sales. And I think we often say the word networking when we mean sales. But to me, real network building is that building of an authentic relationship with another person. And that just doesn't happen if you shake somebody's hand at a reception or you send them a LinkedIn message. The relationship happens when that value has taken place, because it's worthwhile to know you.
I mean, I'm not a great fan of this, and I probably wouldn't be very good at it as well, but there is this sales technique called network marketing, which they generally use it to say, go to your friends and family and blah 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 and start the you know, relationship that way, and you know, try and you shouldn't really go and try and sell something, but it's kind of like saying, I've got this product or whatever it is. But in general, that's the kind of concept, isn't it, what you're talking about? Or not really?
Well, that's actually what I'm opposed to, because I don't
All right.
I don't like to just go around to people and say, well, I'm selling them something. And you know, and you have to do sales, right? There are many sales jobs out there. Often you have to do sales. I recently agreed to raise money for my university, and I basically just called up, and it's funny because all of their sales tips to those of us who agreed to do this were to call up university alumni. And I said, well, I'm not calling up alumni. I'm calling up all my friends and saying, would you please give the minimum amount? I need to look to And they were offering sales techniques of tell them why the university is so wonderful.
Okay.
Tell them about
Yeah.
our young people. Like, no. My sales technique is, please help me. I need to look good. And
Yeah.
many of my friends stepped up, and I was actually one of the most highly ranked fundraisers in this particular
Oh, wow.
effort.
Yeah.
But the thing people need to appreciate is that's because I had those relationships already. And once
Yeah.
you have the relationships, you can go to people and ask them for stuff. So I think when you talk about network marketing, you are doing that. You're going to the people you have relationships with. But we all also need to understand you can only go to any well a certain number of times if you yourself are not adding value in the relationship.
That's the
I don't
key
include
thing.
family in that, right? Yeah, you can ask your family for stuff every day, all day, and no matter how annoying they find you, they have to do it, right?
It's not authentic, is it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And so when you have a relationship with someone that's built on value, they want to help you. And those were the people I went to and said, and I didn't say to them, I've added value for you in the past. Now it's your turn. Because relationships don't work that way. Don't you have friends that you do stuff for them more than they do stuff for you, but they're still your good friend? I feel like if you're going, well, one for me and one for you and one for me, that's transactional. That's not authentic. It's not a relationship.
It's like a business transaction, isn't it? As opposed to
Exactly. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but when most people think about networking, they think they want to build a network of relationships of people who will be there for them and help them when they're looking for a job, when they're trying to land a big client. In my case, someone in my network helped me get a publisher. I wrote this book, and then I thought, now I have a book. I don't know what to do with it. But I had a friend who had written a book. He'd written two, actually. And he said, well, my recommendation is I went with a big publisher the first time, and I went with a small publisher the second time. And I recommend the small publisher. And he gave me a whole list of reasons. We should do a podcast on book publishing because, oh my God.
That'll be the next one then, yeah.
Exactly. My personal experience, we would have to have cocktails for that one, though. I got to promise you. But he connected me with his publisher, and he said she only does 5 or 6 books a year, but I am willing, because I know that you are someone who brings value, I am willing to connect you with her. And so when people network, I think they think that they're somehow going to get this web of relationships of people who will do these things for them and help them. But when they do those inauthentic things, really what they get is a bunch of contacts.
Yeah, that's
but a bunch of contacts won't necessarily put themselves out for you. But in a relationship based on value, the other person will put themselves out for you. So that's the difference. So I'm not against all those other things. I just don't think they lead to the place that most people want to go when they start networking.
Yeah, you probably find a lot of people just get a lot of no's anyway from that. The ratio isn't really that high. Whereas, like you say, word of mouth is quite powerful. So if you being that person they go to and say, well, I know blah 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 blah, and it's all within the relationship network, if you like, then it works quite well, doesn't it? Really. So
bingo.
Yeah, excellent. Well, how actually one thing I'd like to know is with me, because I've got a book as well, but during the pandemic, it's my podcast that actually exploded and did very well, and just
Congratulations.
But then for some reason it went up and down because of personal things that happened to me, and obviously lots of other stuff. So but it's continued to thrive, obviously. But the book was meant to get some speaking stuff as well, but it's ended up being the podcast. For you, it was a speaking, but what I found was that I did have many speakers come on my podcast during the pandemic, and they were doing this thing called e-speaking. So I was wondering what you was doing during the pandemic, or did you write the book? And then when it kind of like the pandemic eased a lot, and I don't even know we were out the pandemic yet. No one said the pandemic's over, have they? But when it eased and people was going out and about, is that when you started speaking and getting the opportunities, or how did it work that way? Because that's a very difficult time to get speaking gigs during the pandemic.
Oh, you are so right. And I was fortunate that I was doing my writing during the pandemic, and the book only got published in November of 2021.
Ah, right.
And
okay.
so the pandemic, and eased is the perfect word. I'm going to steal it from you and use it going forward when I just have the pandemic. 'Cause it's
I'll let you
exactly
have it.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you. But and I didn't start out to speak, but it all kind of happened organically, because when I got connected with this publisher that I was telling you about, the first thing she said to me is, she said, you need to get somebody famous to write the foreword to your book. And I said, well, that's easy to say. I don't know anybody famous. Am I supposed to just call up Tom Brady or something?
Yeah.
And she said, well, think of someone, because it will help your book if you do.
Yeah.
So I knew the CEO of USAA, where I had used to work, and he and I had worked together many years before. And so I reached out to him, and, there was an example of a network relationship happening right there. I hadn't spoken to him in almost 3 years when I called him. And so, how you get that networking advice about keeping in contact with people. I don't believe in that necessarily either. If you have provided enough value, people want to help you when you reach out. You don't
And they'll remember you as well.
Right, exactly.
They're going to remember you. People remember me from 10 years back or longer than that,
Exactly, because they thought you were good. That's why.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him, and he agreed to write the foreword, which was an amazing day in my life when he said he would. So now my book has a foreword written by the CEO of a Fortune 100 company. And that got people interested, because now I wasn't just some person who wrote a book. I was a person who wrote a book that had basically been endorsed by a Fortune 100 CEO. And so people started calling me and saying, wow, we'd really love for you to come talk on this subject. You must know what you're talking about. And people started buying the book to read it and then calling me. So I haven't done that much marketing. And then once I do speak, I'm very proud to say people will hear me, and then they'll recommend me to someone else to be a speaker. But the speaking has taken off as the pandemic has eased. But I was fortunate to not have to be wanting to do that during the time that the pandemic was at its harshest.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, this all really worked out quite well then for you. As I say, I had a few ups and downs that kind of almost halted what I did. But for me, it was a mental thing of perseverance and lots of resilience during that. I actually got dengue fever. I might have got COVID, I think, during that period of time. So I had a few things. There's a few other I've got more serious health issues that that came up. So, but I'll just carry on the way I am. Things are more stable now, but that's the other thing, is the mental side of just carrying on and having that perseverance, just sticking to your goal. But anyway, that's another topic for another day as well, really. So
I got to tell you, though, I'm impressed, because while I have not had dengue fever, I understand the nickname for it is broken bone fever, because you feel like your bones are broken inside your body.
Oh, yeah, it felt like everything was broken. I had a serious headache and everything. I thought it was COVID at first, because it was during the first year of the COVID. Sorry about it. And then, I've had a more serious. It could have killed me, but I got into the hospital because all the beds but I was abroad in the Philippines, and all the beds were taken up with COVID cases, and they said, "Oh, just go home. There's no beds." Then I had to go back again, and the doctor said, "Look, we're going to have to keep you in here and get all the whatever it is there to give me to platelets or come like off the always to get it up to level, yeah." So, but as I said, I had more serious health issues that came up, and I'm just staying in the UK and travel when I can whenever I can, and got this podcast back up and running again after a couple of months off. But I think a lot of it is perseverance as well, and being who you are, like you said. Anyway, that's my final note. Do you have any final notes to give to my audience?
Well, I would love to offer to anybody in your audience a discount on buying my book. It's available at my website, which is either my name, ellenpoole.com, or it's the book title. They both take you the same place. And the book title is Network is Not a Verb. And here, in case anybody is looking at YouTube, here's the book. It's short. I have to tell you, I had a lot of anxiety about writing a short book, but my publisher said, no, people like to read short books. So that made me feel better.
Well, I have dyslexia, so I wouldn't like to read a long book.
Okay,
so I'm happy to. My book's short as well, but I don't read it all the time. But yeah.
But I have to reread mine every once in a while, because people will get it and they'll say things like, well, on page 56, you say this. And I'm thinking, page 56? I don't remember that. So I have to reread it every so often, just so I know what's in there.
That's
But
right, yeah.
anybody listening to this podcast, please, if you are interested in reading my book, you can go to my website and put in the coupon code. It's one word, Dave Palma, DAVEPAMAH.
Correct.
And that will give you 15% off the book. So I hope any of your listeners will do that. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk about my passion about building authentic relationships. So thank you.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Really, we had a great conversation around it, and I believe in a lot of stuff that you've mentioned today, and I'm sure my listeners will obviously take heed of them as well. But I really appreciate you coming on the show as well and giving this talking to me conversation with me from my audience today as well. Thank you very much, Helen.
Oh, you're so welcome.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.